Marina Abramovic is here. She is a performance artist who helped define the medium in its early days. She has remained a figure in that world of performance art for years. She is known for grueling performances that help push the limits of human endurance. Here's a look at some of her early work.
Artists must be beautiful. Art must be beautiful. Artists must be beautiful.
More recently, Abramovic won the Golden Lion at the Venice Biennale and set attendance records at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City for her 2010 retrospective. I am pleased to have her here on this program for the first time. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really
How are you?
pleased. Very well, absolutely.
You're not nervous?
You know...
How could you be nervous? You're a performance artist.
Yes, but you know, even if I have to do any speech or even working with my students, I'm nervous. If I'm not nervous, then I'm nervous why I'm not nervous. So the nervous is a very good state, you know, to deliver message.
Are you better if you're nervous?
Yes, much better.
Much better.
It's very important. It's like adrenaline. It's about focusing.
One of the most intriguing things about you, for me, is your mother and father. Tell me about your mother.
You sound like Bob Wilson.
Robert Wilson, yes.
Yeah, Robert Wilson, when he was doing Life and Death of Marina Abramovic, a theater piece which we can see in Armory, you know, this year. The first thing he said to me, I'm not interested about your art. Art everybody knows by now.
Right.
But I'm definitely interested in your mother.
That's exactly what I said. and I know Bob Wilson, and I'm pleased to be in rank with him.
And, you know, he said to me, you're going to play your mother and on the stage and yourself. And this was for me absolutely terror. My mother was a terror of my life, and I think she learned me discipline. She learned me to focus, and she learned me everything I use now. By the time, you know, she was doing this, I hate her so much. You know, the simple thing...
Give me an example of what she did that made you hate her.
Wow. Let's say she never kissed me in my life. That's one interesting thing.
Now, why is that a discipline?
You know...
Why is she disciplining you by never kissing you?
When I was about 30 years old, I put her in a theater, and I literally lit her, and she looked like Maria Callas in the later stage of her life with the little pearls and, you know, black dress. And I asked her, you know, I was behind the camera, and I was really emotional. I said, Mother, why you never kissed me? She completely surprised with this kind of nonsense question. She said to me, what you think? Of course not to spoil you. My mother never kissed me either. And I understood this kind of chain reaction, that cheating was totally normal. But,
well, then,
you know,
do you think love and some kind of physical expression is important? In other words, do young kids growing up need to feel a sense of confidence that comes in part from knowing there are people who love you?
You know, there's a huge research of the infant children that the gaze of the mother and holding the mother, the infant children, is making their life incredibly emotionally stable later on. To me, it was very traumatic, and you know, my life took me a long time to actually get this emotional stability. And to me, the love of my audience became the really important kind of feedback, because I never got from the mother. I mean, you can always explain this kind of stuff. And the second thing my mother done, when I sleep in the bed,
I know the story. Go
you
ahead.
have to. She will wake me in the middle of the night if my bed was not straight, if I make too messy. And now I go to the hotels, and people didn't even stay in the bed because I sleep.
You still sleep very straight now.
You just look like nobody was there.
And your father?
And my father, you know, he was, you know, both of my mother and father was national heroes, and my father was really old partisan and real communist in pure sense. My mother was
in Yugoslavia.
Bourgeois. In Yugoslavia, Tito time. Mother was bourgeois, completely communist, but bourgeois. But father was, you know, hardcore communist. And he really was thinking about, you know, sacrifice for the cause. Everything was important to him, that denounced the property, the private possessions, to, you know, his statement was, let's have more and more of less and less. And mother was always completely separate. She said, let's have more and more of everything. So I was in a kind of living in these two completely opposite energy. And then comes this grandmother, and my uncle was a saint, proclaimed as a saint in Patriarch in Orthodox Church. So I come from this complete religious background with my grandmother and this hard communism of the father.
And all of it influenced you.
And all of the influence, and then on the end I become Tibetan Buddhist, so it's a mix, it's a beyond. But with grandmother's story, it was wonderful. When I was like 5-6 years old, I was always with her in the church because mother and father was making her career. And then one day, you go there to take your finger to put to cross yourself in the church when you enter.
Right.
And I stood up and I drink all this water because I was thinking if I drink all the water, I become holy. I just got very sick. But it was my first attempt to holiness.
James Westcott, who's your biographer, he said that your art is a craving for attention and devotion.
I have to say that this biography he wrote, and I give him all material, I only actually verify the facts. I could not read it. It's too much. But, it's easy to simplify it that way. But it's much more than that, I think.
Well, what is it?
My entire my work and my dedication to be artist, especially taking performance as a tool, is really to lift human spirit. This is my impression, my main intention. It's so easy to put human spirit down, but it's so difficult to lift it up. I don't like to have the art who presents just society is corrupted, destroyed, and how bad it is. I want to see the solutions. I want to look into future, and my work is about future.
And therefore instilling what? Inspiring what?
To inspire any visitor that happens something to him, looking at my art. And it's very, very highly emotional. One of the critics said to me, American is a friend of mine, and he said, I hate your work. I say, why? He said, always make me cry. Because you mostly you wanted to get your work by head. Everything has to be intellectual. But my work you have to get by guts, by the stomach, by the body.
Some critics have said it's too dark.
The dark, yes and not. I think that it become really positive lately. But, I had to include the pain. Pain was such an important element in my work. Yeah, pain. Pain is something, in our life, there are two things we are afraid. We are afraid of pain and we are afraid of suffering and temporality and, dying. This is a big issue. So I stage elements of pain. I stage the dangerous moments, in a form of performance. And I go through these emotions in the front of the public. And public is a mirror. If I can do this for myself, they can do it in their own life. They can pass the limits and taking risks.
Okay, let's talk about the retrospective at MoMA in 2010.
Yes.
How many hours did you sit there?
736.
And what was that about?
Looks so simple, and so when you take it like this abstract, the curator said to me, Klaus Wiesenbach, he said, okay, you're going to do this performance, artist is present, you're going to sit in this chair, and the front of you will be nobody, and what's going to happen? I said, we'll sit anyway. And that happened, that chair was constantly occupied so much that the people sit between 7 hours to 5, 6, 10, they're coming back in the next day, sleeping outside of the museum. It was just incredible. People in New York who nobody have time. Why they're doing this? What is happening? Why they take this enormous time to just be in the front of me and sitting as a total stranger? Because we need so much to experience something. We are tied to look at things. We want to own experience. Nobody ever changed for the experience if somebody else wrote a great book. But if you get to own experience, that's something matter. And I was
wait. No one ever changed because of the experience of reading a great book?
No, if somebody made the journey and, explore and make the great book,
right.
You read this book, it's wonderful, inspiring, but doesn't change you because you didn't make this trip. You have to make the journey. That makes all the difference. Yeah. So that empty chair was the journey that you have to make yourself.
It is said that there was, and I mentioned men in your life, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Yule.
Yes.
You two would sit across from a table for hours and
yes,
hours.
A part of everything else. We also went to China and say goodbye, walking each of us 2,500 kilometers just to come to the middle and say goodbye. He was
the first great love of your life?
Yes.
How long did it last?
12 years.
12 years?
Yes.
What happened?
I think that there is different theories. If you ask him, he will have one theory. My theory was that actually for me, this was ideal situation. Men of love and work all together. For him was
love
too
and
much,
work together, right there.
For him was too much pressure. You know, we became this ideal love couple, art and love couple.
Yeah.
There was so
Created
much
art together and
and there was so much
together.
projection and on us and so much demands, and he could not handle the pressure. He just wanted to have a simple life, and then you know he actually started cheating in private life, and this broke everything. And it was very
he cheated,
painful.
you think, because he couldn't stand the pressure of too much attention to the fact that you worked and played together.
Yeah, it was impossible.
Would he acknowledge that?
You know, he told me that he won't change, that he doesn't want to have this relationship anymore.
Sure.
And then, you know, we before that we had this idea to walk the wall of China and to marry. You know, when we meet in the middle. And then finally, Chinese took 8 years, because China was not open to foreigners, to actually give permission to walk the Chinese wall. And the moment they say yes, we was on the end of our relationship. So we decide, as I always have to do things I said. So we decide actually to anyway walk, but instead of marrying, saying goodbye. And this was the end of relationship and end of the love story. And in the Willem Dafoe, in the Life and Death of Marina Abramovic, he said to me, but is not maybe a phone call easier way to say goodbye?
Than walking all that distance in China.
3 months each.
And the next great love affair for you was?
It was my last husband.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk about that.
Because?
Because it's too painful.
You who talk about endurance, you who talk about the ability to withstand pain, say, really, I can't talk about that because it's physically too much pain.
You know, with Ula, it was 23 years later.
Yeah.
It's 23 years later we are talking, so it's a perfect distance. This is recent. And, you know, in a way, I don't think this the private life really make any difference about what I want to do in art, because I really sacrifice my private life completely.
I have that assumption, yeah.
And this is really important, because I think when you want to be an artist in the way I want it to be, there is a fever. It's like a disease. It's like you can't do anything else. You're possessed. You wake up in the morning and do your work. It's no space for family. I'm definitely not marriage material. I'm the worst.
You, in fact, said people ask why there are so few female artists who succeed. And you say because women are not ready to sacrifice as much as men.
Yeah, look, Louise Bourgeois. I mean, she had to wait her husband die when she was 60 to make all her career. And this is what happened. You know, it's not easy at all. Loneliness is something that you have to not be afraid of.
You wear this as a badge of courage.
Yeah, it's a very partisan, you know, kind of medal that you have to wear.
In the idea that there were partisans in Yugoslavia? Or
yeah. My family.
Your parents were partisans, yes.
Partisans means warrior.
You know what's the lovely thing about your parents? Back to them. Tell me if I'm wrong about this, but as I remember it, he found her and saved her.
Yes.
She was almost bleeding to death.
Yeah.
Then she comes back and finds him, and he's almost bleeding to death at a hospital.
And they have same blood group.
Same blood group, and they save each other.
Yeah. And then came the peace, and then I was born.
Yeah.
And then they discovered that in real life they're nothing to do with each other in common.
They have nothing in common but saving their lives.
Yes, but at the same time, totally two different social background.
Yeah.
You know, my father would like to.
A prince or something.
You know, my father would like to, you know, to roast the pig in a backyard of the house and have the. And they have drink with his partisan friends. And my mother would like to go to Bolshoi Theatre and look the ballet, you know. And that was two different, completely.
Didn't she become a curator of the museum?
She was the director of the Museum of Art and Revolution in Yugoslavia. So every kind of president will come first to see the museum. You can see the Tito photographs with partisans together with the guns and the social realistic art. I really hated this museum so badly.
But was his life most meaningful to him when he was a partisan?
Yeah, he really... You know, the worst part for him was to actually to accept. He never could accept the change. And when he died, I made a piece called The Hero.
Yeah.
When he was always riding on the white horse, so I made this piece called With White Horse Hero. And the hero, me wearing the white flag, and to me the white flag was a symbol of surrendering. And I called the piece The Hero. It was dedicated to my father, because it was about the hero who could never learn to surrender. He had to surrender to change, and he could never do it.
What's interesting about you, and people talk about feminism and art, and can you create art and be a feminist and all those kinds of things, and you basically say that art has no gender and therefore you can't be a feminist, you personally, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
But at the same time, though, you say that women don't have the same endurance as men, so therefore they can't.
No, they're much stronger than men.
Stronger than men?
Oh, much stronger, because we have the life force to make a child. They don't. But, it's very interesting about this feminism, because it's so different aspect of feminism in America. It's so different in Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, we had abortion, never been a problem.
Right.
The women have the same kind of rights like a man always. And so I never had a need to be feminist. And just recently, Anthony Haggerty, the singer, he made a wonderful festival, Meltdown, in London. And he asked me to do something that I never done myself, to make the lecture just for women, which I done in London, Albert Hall, and was 2,500 women in that.
How many?
2,500.
2,500.
Yeah, all kinds of women from different social backgrounds, the disabled women, the women from art, the women from from industry. And it was incredible. I never understood the energy of that kind of sisterhood that I had. And, I stood there in the front of them and I talk, and I never prepared anything, it just came out of me. And at the last minute, I decided completely spontaneously to completely undress myself and stand naked in the front of them. And they all stood up, and we all closed eyes and just have this energy passing between us. No one woman made the photograph of that scene, so I don't even have the photograph, which was...
No one did photograph the scene?
No.
You know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say they all stood up and undressed themselves, so you had...
No, it was not necessary. I wanted to, nobody is undressed for another woman. I wanted to be naked completely like a child born, something very, very pure, and give this kind of energy. It was an amazing experience, I have to say. Never had it in my life.
Let's go to the third throw two, number 3, the Abramovic method. Take a look at that, and you'll tell me what I should receive from this.
I come from Orthodox background. My grandmother was always going to the church. As a child, I used to go with her. I was very impressed by the icons, especially Serbian, Greek, and Russian Orthodox icons. Then I heard all the stories about icons making miracles and creating an inner light. In the icons, it is all about the internal journey of enlightenment. In a state of pure consciousness, you produce light and project it to the outside world. The light comes from inside.
Tell me what I just saw.
It's not what you saw, it's what you feel, I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's important. What is Abramovic method? Abramovic method, can I just demonstrate with this glass of water?
Yeah.
Very simple. You see, we take this glass of water and we drink without consciously, just automatically.
Right.
But if you take this glass of water and really close your eyes and put next to your lips and feel the coldness and the touch of the liquid in your tongue, and then take a small sip, swallow and find how that energy nourishes you, and then the simple example of drinking water become ritual. So to me is really opening consciousness about every single action we are doing it, because we are just becoming invalids of technology. So my institute, I just want to open in Hudson, it's really about that. It's about ritualizing everyday life, but also learning the public to actually came in terms with themselves. Just it's so simple and it's so important, because we lost it. We lost our center so long ago. And the artists, the art have to have the awareness, but also art have to predict the future, and art have to be disturbing, and art have to, give you some kind of idea, of what can happen to you and how can help, and ask questions. So one of the things I'm doing is creating that method. And here we are talking about inside light.
You're creating it or teaching it?
I create and teaching too.
Yeah.
And to go to my institute, you have to actually sign the contract that you have to spend 6 hours. Otherwise, you can get in as a normal visitor. You have to spend 6 hours in the space. You have to give me time if I give you experience. If you don't give me your time, you can't get in. It's as simple like that. And the moment you go there, we are going through different experiences, chambers and so on. It's complicated to explain in such a short time. But basically, you really can change your consciousness. And it's all about changing consciousness today. And that's what I wanted to create, the method that we can actually access that.
When I ask people, scientists, neuroscientists, what do they most want to understand, and what are their biggest questions about, they always say consciousness.
But when you ask a scientist, let's say a brain surgeon, and we ask him, but what is the brain? You know what he say? We don't know.
Tissue.
No, we don't know. We don't know so many things. We're just guessing things. But one thing we really can deal, it's we can provoke certain emotions, and we can, open certain area in our bodies that we are basically closed. This is why I made a very big, experiment with scientists, Russian and Americans. If you have the AG caps on your brain, and the person who is opposite of me have the same AG caps, and we just engage in this gaze, you can see literally how the brain can function and how send enormous amount of subconscious message between each of us. And now we are analyzing data to see what it means. Especially have to be non-verbal communication with a complete stranger. And the brain is so active, and we have no idea what's going on. So scientists have to give some answers to all this about consciousness.
Well, they're finding out more and more every day, but at the same time, they're also finding interesting ways how, those people who've thought about it without the kind of techniques we have today were right in terms, and I also think that art has something to do with it as well. I mean, you're on to something important as well.
But to me, what is very important is the mixture right today. What we are looking into Institute I'm trying to create is the mixture between art, technology, and science,
right.
And spirituality. Dogon people in South Africa, they was worshipping the Trans-Pluto little satellite, which nobody knew they exist till the scientists find the telescopes strong enough that find out that actually Trans-Pluto exists. How possibly they know? Intuition. You see, spirituality have already so much insight of things but science have to have proofs, otherwise they don't exist, because they have to be conclusive. So that's really interesting now, combination between science and technology with the intuition of artists who can be completely a new area to experiment.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Very good to see you.